I'll only disappoint you. Hello everyone, Ryan here, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the new public service broadcasting album titled Every Valley. Public Service Broadcasting are an electronic group based in London, and they released a pretty interesting album a few years ago titled The Race Space, which came out in 2015. And this album was a very conceptual album, all focusing on different missions that involved space. Musically, this album was very inspired by genres like krautrock. It was a very good musical listen, but the main focus of this album was in fact all of the snippets and samples that they had taken from the Apollo missions and Sputnik 1, and it kind of ended up being a really cool conceptual album that just focused on all the great elements of what we've achieved over the past however many decades involving our kind of space discoveries. And when I say our, I mean obviously, us as humans, of course. And I think that's actually something quite noticeable about public service broadcasting, because they are very much focusing on like humans and the events that they go through, because this new album here is another concept album. As the main writer of public service broadcasting has already pointed out, this album is focusing this time on the coaling and mining industry in Wales, and the decline of the mining industry, of course, which happened like decades ago, and of the strikes that miners went through, and how it pretty much evaporated in the UK, but specifically in Wales. And this all comes through with all these samples and snippets from people talking about how they experienced things during this and how it changed their lives and stuff like that. But it's all done through spoken word samples. And as I've talked about recently with the King Gizzard album, I'm not always a huge fan of spoken word, but I've got to say this album does it very well, and public service broadcasting in general do it really well, because never at any point does it take away from the music, or never at any point does it interrupt the music or slow things down. It's just all layered in, and it sounds like it's incredibly natural, and it works so well. The only thing is, though, is that the music to this album is often at times just pleasant. It's just pleasant on the ears, and it's nice to listen to, but it's not really grabbing you or pulling you in any particular way. It's just very well done electronic krautrock music, and even often at times post-rock is involved in this as well. There are some really good crescendos that crop up in this album that really get me quite excited. And then there are the guest features on this album, including the Manic Street Preachers lead singer, and he puts in a great performance. This probably is one of the better tracks on the album, just because it does have a bit more of a dynamic to it. It isn't just spoken word across the song, there is a singer involved. This is the same for the track Progress, which features vocals from Tracy Ann Campbell, and this track is mostly just focusing on how we went from manpower to horsepower in that sort of sense, like we changed the way things were by using machines, and of course progress became quite revolutionary because it wasn't just about forcing labor upon workers. It was that we could eventually use machines and make things a lot easier, and technology was able to advance. It's this sort of thing that I was saying before, as how like public service broadcasting focus on those human elements of things, how we like achieve in the world, like that last album of course was about space, and this one again is kind of like looking at how we progressed in that sense, and we eventually made things a lot easier, and society became a better place to live in. And not only just about technology, but they even focus on women's rights as well on the track They Gave Me a Lamp, which features a spoken word passage once again from Heiku Salut, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, where she's talking about how things were very different for her, and there were other women around her that weren't taught the same things that she was taught, so she felt quite different to other women, but that also felt like an inspiration to her, as to kind of tell them that they should be doing what she's doing, and they should go out picketing as well, protesting, and also be a part of support groups, and obviously things were able to change from there. So there are many elements that this album focuses on, and I've got to praise it on everything that it does, because it just seems to get everything right in that sense. It's just a shame that I'm not instantly grabbed by everything on the album, because at points it just feel like background music, which is fine. It's very good background music, but if you're not focusing on the topics and the themes, then this album's probably going to fly over your head. The closing track is a pretty powerful closer, I must say, because it's this choir, this Welsh choir, singing about being in the mines and how, they'd go home and be so happy to be home to see their family, but then they would go back to the mines and go back to work, but then they would always be thinking about the day that they can finally go and see their family again. Just the concept alone, this album is easily worth recommending. I mean, there's nothing like this out there. You can't say that there are albums that get made like this every week, because public service broadcasting put out something completely different each time, and I think that by the time their next album is released, their concept will be off the wall like this one. So if anything I've said interests you into listening to this album, I would definitely recommend it. Give it a try. I'm going to say it's a C+. I think it's a very solid album. Don't know if it's going to be a favourite of mine or anything like that, but I appreciate everything that it did on this album. It's a really cool album. If you're into electronic or krautrock music, definitely give it a listen. You'll enjoy this. And yeah, if you like this review, make sure you subscribe for more album reviews, and have a good day.